A sudden shift is happening in the world right now, a feeling people can't explain but can't ignore either, as if something beneath the surface is moving faster than we're ready for, pulling humanity toward a moment we've only heard about in warnings passed down for generations. There's tension in the air, not political, not economic, but spiritual, the kind that makes ordinary events look strangely connected, like puzzle pieces falling into place without our permission. And if you're watching this right now, it might not be a coincidence, because this message is for the people who can feel that something is off, something big, something we can't pretend isn't happening anymore. Before we continue, tell me where in the world you're watching from, and if you find content like this important, subscribe to this channel so you never miss what comes next. The pace at which the world is changing has never felt this unsettling, and the shift isn't just physical, it's mental, emotional, and deeply spiritual. It feels like everything solid is cracking, everything familiar is turning into something unfamiliar, and every day brings another story that sounds less like news and more like a prophecy unfolding. People are searching for answers, yet drowning in confusion. They're surrounded by more information than any other generation, yet understanding seems further away than ever. Technology advances, but wisdom fades. Morality bends, but desires rise. And as the noise of the world grows louder, the truth becomes harder to hear. This is the perfect atmosphere described in Islamic teachings, a world where deception thrives not because it's powerful, but because the hearts meant to see through it are tired, distracted, and unprepared. The warning about deception is one of the most emphasized teachings regarding the era surrounding Dajjal. And when we look at 2025, deception isn't just present, it's global, instant, and disguised as convenience. Truth used to be something you searched for. Now it's something that gets buried under endless opinions, edited realities, and manufactured illusions. Information travels faster than thinking, and people react before verifying anything. Anyone with a platform can shape beliefs, twist narratives, or create chaos with a single post. Artificial intelligence can now fabricate human voices, generate faces that never existed, and produce scenes that look real enough to fool millions. Lies don't walk anymore, they fly. And the danger isn't just that deception exists. It's that people have stopped caring whether what they consume is true or false, as long as it entertains, comforts, or confirms what they already want to believe. Islamic teachings warn that Dajjal's greatest weapon will be his ability to distort reality so convincingly that people will choose illusion over truth without hesitation. And today, we're witnessing a world conditioning itself for exactly that. Entertainment replaces reflection. Trends override principles. Popularity becomes the new definition of truth. People are so immersed in screens that they rarely question what they're shown, and when the mind becomes numb, the heart becomes vulnerable. This atmosphere, this blindness wrapped in convenience, is the perfect soil for the kind of deception the Prophet ﷺ described. Not because Dajjal has appeared, but because humanity is being shaped into a version that could easily fall for someone who presents falsehood with confidence and miracles that defy logic. And as we move deeper into this discussion, the signs only get more unsettling. There is a kind of emptiness spreading through people today, not the kind that comes from loneliness, but the kind that comes from a life overflowing with everything except meaning. We live in a world where distractions are endless, where entertainment is always within reach, and yet hearts feel heavier than ever, searching for something that all these temporary pleasures can't seem to provide. People wake up plugged into a digital world before they even speak to another human being, and they go to sleep scrolling through images and stories that make them compare, envy, and feel inadequate without even realizing it. This spiritual hunger is becoming a silent epidemic, invisible but powerful, pushing people further away from their creator while convincing them they're doing fine because life looks busy and productive on the outside. Faith becomes neglected not out of rebellion, but out of exhaustion. When hearts are constantly stimulated, constantly distracted, constantly entertained, they lose the ability to feel the sweetness of worship, the calmness of prayer, the comfort of remembering Allah. People carry stress like it's normal, anxiety like it's expected, and emptiness like it's permanent, not realizing that this internal drought is exactly what Islamic teachings warn about, a time when faith becomes light, fragile, easy to break, and hard to rebuild. This is the kind of spiritual vulnerability that paves the way for deception, because when someone has nothing stable to hold on to, they'll cling to anything that promises relief, even if it leads them deeper into darkness. We're witnessing a generation that knows every trend, but struggles to recite even a short surah, a generation connected to millions online, yet feeling more disconnected from Allah than ever before. When the soul is neglected long enough, it becomes desperate, willing to believe anything that offers comfort or excitement. And that desperation is exactly what makes people susceptible to false guidance, false miracles, and false saviors. But it doesn't stop there, because the spiritual emptiness of today is deeply tied to another alarming shift unfolding around us: the rise of blind followership. People no longer stand for what's right because it's right, they stand for whatever is popular, whatever the majority supports, whatever makes them feel accepted. In a world obsessed with approval, truth becomes secondary and integrity becomes optional. Followers outnumber thinkers, loud opinions drown out wisdom, and instead of asking, "Is this right?" people ask, "Is this trending?" The frightening part is how easily crowds can be manipulated now. With algorithms shaping what people see, with influencers shaping what people believe, with movements rising overnight without clear purpose or understanding, it's becoming increasingly rare for someone to step back and question the direction they're being pulled toward. Islamic teachings describe the era of Dajjal as a time when huge numbers of people will follow him, not because his message is logical, but because it satisfies desires, offers shortcuts, and appeals to the ego. Today, we can already see how ready people are to follow personalities over principles, charisma over character, and excitement over truth. Crowd mentality has become so powerful that many people fear being on the side of truth if it means being alone. And that fear pushes them closer to whatever ideology, trend, or figure receives the most attention, even if it contradicts everything their soul knows is wrong. The idea of people blindly supporting someone simply because everyone else is doing it is no longer a hypothetical warning. It's something we see every day across social media, news, and culture. This emotional, unexamined loyalty is extremely dangerous because it creates a world where truth is not lost, it's ignored. And when truth is ignored long enough, falsehood becomes easier to accept. These two conditions, spiritual emptiness and blind followership, are not isolated, they feed each other. A heart without guidance seeks belonging in the crowd, and a mind that doesn't reflect follows whatever noise is loudest. Together, they create the kind of environment the Prophet ﷺ warned us about. A time when people would be pulled by forces they don't understand toward outcomes they never questioned, all while thinking they're in control. And if this is what the world looks like before the great deception arrives, imagine how powerful that deception will be when it finally comes. There's a growing pressure in the world that people can feel but struggle to describe. A pressure tied to money, survival, and dependence on systems we barely understand. Economic instability isn't just a headline anymore, it's becoming a daily anxiety for millions. Prices rise without warning, currencies fluctuate overnight, and people wake up unsure whether their savings will still hold value tomorrow. What makes this so unsettling is not the instability itself, but the realization of how fragile our lives actually are when everything depends on digital numbers stored in systems we do not control. Banks can freeze accounts with a single glitch. Markets can collapse because of decisions made in rooms we will never enter. A simple cyber attack could wipe out years of earnings in minutes. Humanity has reached a point where survival depends not on physical strength or community support, but on digital permission. Islamic teachings warn that before Dajjal appears, people will face hardships and scarcity so severe that many will be willing to trade their principles just to feel secure. And when we look around today, the groundwork for that dependence is already forming. Nearly every aspect of life, food, income, shelter, identification, is tied to systems that can be restricted or manipulated. Digital IDs, digital currencies, automated services. The convenience is undeniable, but so is the vulnerability. One update, one outage, one policy change, and people are cut off from the very things they need to live. This level of dependence creates the perfect environment for someone to exploit global fear, offering solutions that seem miraculous, fast, and irresistible. Someone who could provide food instantly, wealth instantly, security instantly. Someone people might follow out of desperation rather than truth. The danger doesn't come from technology itself, but from how easily it can be weaponized in a world where trust is shifting from God to systems and from systems to individuals with power. At the same time, something far more subtle yet equally alarming is unfolding across society. The normalization of what was once unthinkable. Moral boundaries that guided humanity for centuries are fading, not because they were disproven, but because they're inconvenient to modern desires. Behaviors that were once seen as harmful are now celebrated. Values that held families together are dismissed as outdated. Modesty is mocked, decency is labeled restrictive, and anything that promotes discipline or self-control is treated as an obstacle to personal freedom. This transformation isn't happening slowly. It's happening at a speed that leaves people disoriented, unsure of what's right or wrong anymore. Islamic teachings emphasize that one of the signs of the end times is a complete inversion of morality, where truth becomes strange and falsehood becomes familiar. And that inversion is unfolding right now. What used to be clearly recognized as destructive is now normalized through repetition, entertainment, and social approval. People are not just participating, they're desensitized. They don't notice the shift because it happens inch by inch, trend by trend, influence by influence. The danger lies in how quickly society adapts. What shocks people today becomes acceptable tomorrow, and by next week it becomes a lifestyle. Without even realizing it, hearts become numb to sin, minds become numb to consequences, and souls become numb to guidance. This moral erosion creates the perfect stage for a deceiver to rewrite the rules of right and wrong, because once people lose their moral compass, they are willing to accept anything that feels good, exciting, or beneficial, even if it contradicts divine truth. And that is where the greatest risk lies. A world that abandons its values becomes eager for new ones. A society without boundaries becomes easy to sway. When people stop anchoring themselves to revelation, they anchor themselves to whatever offers comfort, convenience, or identity. And that vulnerability opens the door for a figure who can reshape beliefs, rewrite morals, and present falsehood so confidently that it feels like truth. These two global shifts, economic fragility and moral erosion, are not isolated incidents. They reinforce each other. When people feel insecure financially, they're willing to compromise morally. When they compromise morally, they become even more dependent on worldly systems for a sense of stability. It becomes a cycle that weakens faith, weakens clarity, and weakens the ability to resist deception. And as this cycle continues, the world becomes more and more prepared for someone who will take advantage of all this weakness, offering solutions wrapped in temptation, promising relief while demanding loyalty, and presenting false miracles that people will accept not because they believe but because they're desperate. The world is shrinking in a way humanity has never experienced before, not physically, but through the speed at which influence travels. Someone can speak in one corner of the world and be heard across oceans within seconds. Ideas that once took decades to spread now take minutes. A single message, a single image, a single statement can reach millions before the speaker even finishes talking. This kind of global reach was unimaginable for most of human history. Yet Islamic teachings described a time when a figure would emerge with the ability to reach people everywhere so quickly that it would seem supernatural. While that figure has not appeared, the infrastructure that would make such influence possible is already here, operating every moment of the day. Technology has created a world where distance has become meaningless. People can project themselves into homes, hearts, and minds without ever traveling physically. A person no longer needs to cross deserts or oceans to influence entire nations. All they need is a platform, a connection, and a message that captures attention. And once attention is captured, control becomes effortless. The frightening part is not that messages can spread so quickly, but that people no longer question the intentions behind what they consume. The world today can be shaped by a single individual with access to the right tools that can simulate miracles, manipulate emotions, and create illusions so seamless they appear divine to the unprepared eye. This is the kind of environment Islamic teachings warn about, an environment where people rely on what they see through screens rather than what they know from revelation. When an image or phenomenon goes viral, people don't stop to reflect, they react. And reactions are powerful. They can inspire faith, panic, loyalty, or obedience. They can create movements and silence nations. And if this is what ordinary people can achieve today with technology, imagine the response to someone who arrives with extraordinary abilities, someone who commands attention effortlessly, someone who can appear to solve global problems with a gesture. The world is being shaped to accept influence instantly and unquestioningly, and that readiness is far more dangerous than the technologies that enable it. As all of this unfolds, another realization becomes impossible to ignore. The warnings in our faith were never meant to terrify us. They were meant to awaken us, to remind us that the world would become confusing, chaotic, and overwhelming near the end, but guidance would always remain clear for those who hold on to it. The signs we're witnessing today are not proof that the final deceiver has arrived, but they are powerful reminders that the environment described in Islamic teachings is forming rapidly. And when the world feels unstable, the human reaction is often fear, but fear is not what we are called toward. The real call is to awareness, to wakefulness of the heart, to the understanding that spiritual strength matters more now than ever before. The protection mentioned in the teachings reciting Surah Al-Kahf, holding firmly to Tawheed, seeking knowledge, recognizing truth, even when it's unpopular, these are not small acts, they are shields. They are light in a time when darkness spreads quietly. The deceptive forces described in the end times do not overpower people by brute strength. They overpower them by weakening their connection to Allah. This is why the most important preparation is not physical, it is spiritual. A heart grounded in faith cannot be swayed by illusions, no matter how convincing they appear. A mind anchored in truth cannot be manipulated by trends or false promises. The purpose of reflecting on these signs is not to predict dates or fuel panic, but to remind ourselves of what truly matters in a world that constantly pulls us toward distractions. If anything, these signs are mirrors showing us our spiritual state, urging us to return to what gives real clarity. Because while deception may spread, guidance never disappears. While illusions may grow stronger, truth remains untouched. And while the world may drift toward the conditions described in prophecy, every believer still has the power to protect their heart, strengthen their faith, and stay grounded in the reality that all strength comes from Allah alone.